Hey guys and girls, Brett with Brett's Crappy Shots here again today. I finally got my Vortek Products piston seal for the Gamo Swarm. It's a 25mm seal. I got it from vortekproducts.com. I don't know if they'll focus in or not, but that's how you spell it. And while I was on their website, I also got the Moly Lube. And this video is basically just going to be me tearing the gun down and preparing it for the new piston seal, installation of the new piston seal, and reassembling it. As you can tell here, I've already taken the scope off. I figure if you don't know how to take scope off, then you probably shouldn't be watching this video. So let's dig in. First, what I'm going to do is take out the magazine, lay it up there out of the way, and then we're going to remove the magazine assembly. Take a flathead screwdriver, take this little C-clip, there's a little C-clip right here, holds a pin in. Take it out. Be careful because that thing will fly if you let it. Then lay it over here. It's a tiny little thing, it's easily lost. Push the pin out. Lay it over there out of the way. And then pull these little spring levers out. It's not too hard. Ta-da! And then I'm going to go ahead and take this stop screw out. Go ahead and get that done and out of the way. You can do it in pretty much any order as long as this comes out before you try and remove the piston. And to be honest with you, it looks like it comes in contact with the cylinder and all down in there. I'm not 100% sure if it does, but I take it out and lay it over here. Now with that out of the way, you're going to want to change heads. Pretty sure it's this one. Yeah. And I've already gone through and kind of pre-loosened them just to make the video a little bit quicker. First stock bolt. I'm not too sure what size that is. It's a T20. Just a tiny little thing. And then you got one more down here at the trigger guard, which I think it's a different one. Yeah, it's a star bit. And it is... I'm not sure what size it is. not that size. Next one. It's the T20, I'm sorry. The 2 hex bolts are H4. See, it's right at the back of the trigger guard. And before filming and all, I did make sure that it was not chambered or cocked. I don't have the proper tools to really do this, but this is also the first gun that I've actually worked on like this. So, and now, just by taking out those 3 screws, it is ready to come out. Be careful when you do pull it out. This little washer or bushing, whatever you want to call it, goes right here on this little pin, just like that. It likes to fly. It likes to fly away. That comes off. It just slides out. And then I go ahead and remove this linkage here. And the way I do it is probably different from what most people will. I've found that it's quite the pain in the butt. But what I do, after learning the hard way several times, I remove this little spring right here in the trigger group. It's easier to remove this and remove this whole piece of gray plastic here than it is to try and weasel this linkage out from its hole there. Go ahead and grab your needle nose pliers or screwdriver, either way, but you want to be able to hold on to it a little bit, that way it don't fly off, because it will. That's what that looks like. I don't know if the camera's going to focus on it or not, but okay, now with that taken out, this gray piece of plastic in the trigger group just slides out. Now you can twist that to remove the linkage. Set your gray piece of plastic over there. Now comes the fun and tricky part. Basically, this just sits down in there like that. Just lift right there. Comes out. I grab a rubber band and put it around that, because it does tend to flop around and get in your way. So there's that. Now for the fun part. You have to remove this pin. It goes all the way through, locking the trigger assembly, piston, and everything in place. To do this, you're going to want to put the gun in a vise. Okay? Now what I use is different from just about every one that I've seen online use. But I use the Irwin Quick Grip vise. You can get it at Lowe's. I'm sure Home Depot's got a version of it. Pretty much any hardware store is going to have one. And I lock it into my vise. You can do it without a vise. I've done it myself without a vise. And you're going to want to get you a nut that is smaller than the cylinder wall, because this needs to fit just like that, or just throw it in the floor, Brett, just throw it in the floor, or like that. Either one doesn't really matter as long as it's in the center and it pushes all of that forward, because this pin is held in by pressure. And I have found that just taking that little nut, and I don't have my good tape down here with me right now, so I'll just use this painter's tape. And no, I won't either. Okay, I'm going to pause you and get some decent tape, and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Get your decent tape. And I like to have that part actually on the vise. So I'm just going to stick that there. Bring this over here. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a temporary thing anyway, right? Because I'm sure if you buy one of these, you're probably going to use it for more than just this. But I go ahead and break it, and basically this part of the vise I set right here, right there. That way it's in line and has a 90-degree angle. I can get a good flat, even surface to work with. And having something to prop the barrel up on that's about the right height really does help this process along. Alright, once you see the piston and trigger group assembly and all moving forward slightly, that's when you grab your hammer and your pin driver, which for me, I just use a nail that I've ground the tip off of a little bit. Works perfect for me. It really doesn't take much force to drive that pin out. Just barely tapping it is plenty. And then release your grip. Hold your hand under it just in case the pin tries to fall. And I didn't have the nut up high enough on the grip here, so I wasn't able to get the pin fully out. So I'll set it right here and finish driving that pin. There's not much holding it. Well, I was wrong. Okay, let me move this nut up a little bit, and we'll do that again. I just about had it. Just about. There we go. Ta-da! That's the pin. That holds everything together. Now, release your grip. So it goes all the way through there. And you can lock it back and just drop out everything. Good job, Brett. Good job. Okay. And now everything's filthy. I'm going to have to really clean it. But, okay. It comes out of the gun just like that right there. Take your piston out. Be careful because sometimes this washer, sometimes the piston will actually come out of the trigger group while you're trying to pull it out. And this washer right here will tend to try and fly away. And it's basically just a spacer. I'm not exactly for sure what the exact purpose in this washer is. I'm guessing it's to prevent wear and tear on the back of the trigger group there. Could be wrong though. I know in spring powered guns, adding a washer in behind the spring and all will put some preload tension on that spring. So that may have something to do with maybe pushing the gas piston forward a little bit more than what it would without it. I don't know if, I'm not too sure. But that's the trigger group. I've already had this apart, and I changed the screw here to a longer screw. That way I could adjust the second stage more. And now I've got a nice clean, crisp trigger. That's first stage, and that's second. I would say it's probably about 1.5 pounds now. But after shooting it with this longer screw, it really seems to it has really seemed to help my accuracy. Okay, Yeah, the camera just cut off, so I'll probably have to edit some of that. But we'll go ahead and set that out of the way, along with the plastic piece and washer and piston, or ram. That's gas ram, not piston. Now, to get the piston out, the first time I took the gun apart, the piston flew out, no problem. All I did was that right there, and it came out. It's not really supposed to be that loose in there. And grab your screwdriver, and right here is part of the piston. So you just take your screwdriver, and normally if you're taking out a piston that's got a good seal that you want to keep, start taking care to when you pull it out, because it can catch right there and rip the piston. But it's old, wore out. It's the original with the damaged seal. But I don't know if you can tell or not. When you first take this out of your gun, it's not going to look quite like this. I did a lot of sanding on it and polishing it. Right now it's greased up. And what I did, because I was in a pinch and didn't have my Moly lube yet, I used some super lube. It seemed to work fairly well. I mean, it's still fully intact all over. I don't see any gouging. Before, I saw a lot of gouging on this, and so we'll set that out of the way for right now. And I'm going to show y'all a little trick that I found to be quite useful. I got a brake hone from my local auto parts store, and I did grind this down so I could fit it into these, just like that, so I could put it in the drill. And I've seen a lot of videos where people will use like a wooden dowel or something with a paper towel and running it up through the cylinder and all to clean it, to do the initial oil removal. And I do it a little bit different. What I do is I wrap a paper towel around this while it's compressed, wrap it up real good, and I'll put it in the drill and run it up and down, up and down. I'm going to spray a little bit of brake clean in it, just to go ahead and get the lubricant to start breaking down a little bit for me. That way this process goes a little bit quicker. Alright. I'm just going to lay that there like that. Grab my drill. And I found that this is actually long enough. I had to use two of them on it, but just put it in your drill. Grab your clean paper towel, blue shop towel, and what I'm going to do is folded in half. It doesn't have to be perfect. Set this up here. And I wrap this. I compress them in so that it's pretty much at its smallest setting. And I put it about halfway through the paper towel. And just wrap. This will help hold tension on the paper towel so that when it's going through there, it's actually kind of scrubbing the walls of the cylinder. And okay. Now, you can do this several different ways. Put it in a vise, you can hold it. For me, I'm going to put it in the vise. I'm going to angle it like that. That way maybe the debris and all will fall back. Spray a little bit more carb clean in, or brake clean. Insert. There we go. And right now it's getting caught right here. It's fairly clean compared to what it was the first go around, just because last weekend, 7 days ago, I had this part. Since then, I've put about 200 rounds through it, just kind of testing out my new polishing job of the cylinder. I did use the brake hone to go into the cylinder and kind of hone it out, and then I took some 800 grit scuff pad and wrapped it around the brake hone and ran it through. And then I used a paper towel with some lubricant, some silicone lubricant, to go around and kind of smooth things out. I did that for actually about 5 to 10 minutes. I wasn't sure if it was actually working at polishing it or not, so I went the extra mile and just kept going with it to make sure that it was smooth. And turns out after putting my flashlight down in there and looking, it was nicely polished. So I am going to take a quick look. I'm not even going to bother to try and hook up the camera to look in it because chances are it's not going to focus. I tried to take pictures of it before and they didn't turn out too well. And yeah, that's nice and polished, real shiny. Looks good to me. Alright. Now, it is entirely up to you. If you want the most out of your gas ram gun, then you'll probably want to do the extra mile and hone out your cylinder. It's up to you whether you want to polish it or not. To me, polishing it seemed like it was going to be a better deal for accuracy and everything. I want as much smoothness as possible. A lot of people will actually probably argue with me on that, and that's fine. This is my gun. I'm doing it the way I want to do it, and I think it has turned out fairly good. The testing that I did last weekend with the chronograph and all seemed to show quite the improvement. My extreme spread has dropped considerably even with a bad piston seal. So I'm just going to clean these up a little bit. Can't quite tell because it's still slightly lubed up, but it is nice and polished. Dirty, but nice and polished. Because the factory piston has some black paint on it, I think. Yeah, it had black paint on it. And it had a lot of gouge marks in it. Some of them I was able to buff out. Some of them are actually too deep to be able to get them out. And to take off the old piston seal, I found a neat little trick. I tried the whole hot water deal, and for me it didn't work. It didn't even come close to working. But if you have a heat gun, like I do, basically turn it on, heat up your piston seal, and it doesn't take very long. Just kind of heat it up. That should have it. It makes it a lot easier to get off. Ta-da! And I even went as far as to polish this up. It wasn't very smooth from the get-go, but I was able to polish it up pretty good as well. It's nice and smooth now. Basically just getting any leftover lube or piston seal or anything out of there. Okay. Now that's clean and ready to go. I'm going to go through and clean off the washer and Clean the plastic piece. Clean the gas ram. And at this point I'm going to switch paper towels because that one's getting filthy. And I didn't polish this up. I didn't really see any need to, even though it has quite a bit of scoring marks on it from sliding back and forth, or the piston actually sliding back and forth on it. But this needs to be nice and smooth. It should be. From the factory, it should be nice and smooth. If not, I suggest you probably smooth it out, polish it up, make sure it's nice and smooth. I spray a little bit of Lube, silicone spray on it, just to make sure that it keeps moving back and forth and that's sealed nice and smooth. Take your trigger group, shine it up real good. Get all the old grease out. And do be careful. These little O-rings that the pin slides through, they're not exactly a normal O-ring that you're going to find at an auto parts store. They're thicker. So make sure you don't lose them and don't damage them, because otherwise you're going to have to order them off the internet, I'm sure. And see right here, the little marking and indentation, that is actually where, I put it over here, the scope mount screw comes in contact. That's where it hits. So that's why I say take it out. That looks nice and clean to me. Now I'm going to go grab a nice clean paintbrush, small, to apply the Moly lubricant. So I'm going to pause you and I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Got my paintbrush, got my Moly lube. Well, actually I probably want to put the piston seal on first. So, with that said, to put it on, I'm going to use some silicone spray just to help things slide along. This seal is supposed to have Moly embedded inside of it. It is quite the nice looking seal. Looks nice and smooth. So I'm going to heat this up with the heat gun. Probably not as much as I did with the original seal. The original seal is really stiff. This one isn't as stiff. So I don't think it's going to take nearly as much. But I'm going to spray some on the back side. Shake it off. You don't need a whole lot. And put a little bit on the front side of it. I'm going to face it face down. And I'm going to grab my heat gun. And I see where it's starting to dry a little bit. grab your piston, make sure it's clean again, and you go in at an angle like that. Take that little edge there and put it in the hole. Kind of twist. And that should have it. And there it is. Freshly installed piston seal. Now I see a little bit of silicone still stuck down in the groove there, so I'm going to run the paper towel down through there. It's not really going to hurt anything, but there we go. Alrighty. Now, with that done, now it's time to start Moly lubing everything. And when I say everything, I don't actually mean everything. Nice and smooth. All right. And I've seen some people mix the Moly lube in with a thinner lubricant. I'm not going to. But now is the time you want to put on gloves, because Moly isn't exactly healthy for you. From what I understand, it doesn't take much Moly lubricant to do the job. So use a paintbrush to apply it in thin layers, or in a thin layer. And you don't really want it on your skin. It's kind of bad for you. So. There we go. Got some Moly on the paintbrush. And I am going to put it right here on the edge of the piston seal. Trying not to get it on the front of the piston seal, just on the edge. Wipe off any excess. And then the rest of the piston, just a thin coat. And honestly, this seems maybe a little too thick, so I may need to add a little bit of a lubricant in with it. You just kind of paint it on real thin. Look at the happy trees. Those look like happy trees. Basically, you don't have to get it perfect because I'm going to lightly run a paper towel across this just to make sure I get a nice uniform thin coating. Moly particles are so small that they actually kind of embed into the metal a little bit from what I've read. I could be wrong, but see, it's getting slippery already. I'm going to set that there for a moment. And put a little bit of Moly lube on the washer that goes in the trigger group. And now I can kind of see why people would add a thinner lubricant to it just to help apply it, really, because it's fairly thick. It's definitely a grease. And for any of y'all out there, this is my actual first attempt or use of Moly lubricant. I've never used it before, and honestly I'd never heard of it until I started researching piston seals. Just kind of set that over there, and I'm going to paint the inside of this just real quick. Just put a little bit in there, and here in a second I'll show you why. The reason I'm painting that inside there is because how that has wore. I doubt it's going to do anything, but I'm trying to make this gun last forever. And if you ask me, sooner or later that's probably going to rub a hole through the piston or the ram. That's not something I want to happen. So I'm going to put a little Moly there and hope that that doesn't happen. And I've got Moly on my gloves, so I'm just going to kind of rub it in all over. And honestly, it probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit on the shaft there. Okay. I'm going to pause you. And I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Okay. Go ahead and put your washer down in the trigger group there. It probably ain't going to make any difference here either. But I've got a little extra on my glove, so why not, right? Put that in there. You want to make sure you put it in right. Well, there's only one way it can go, really. But I'm going to put a little bit more lube to help hold that washer in place while I'm fooling with it. Okay. I've thought about maybe adding a second washer in there just to see how it does, but I'm really dying to see how well a brand new piston will work for me. So, or a new piston seal. And I don't want to mess up those results by adding in a second washer and making it suck, or making it truly awesome and not average. I kind of wiped that off a little bit. There's a little excess there. Looks like I got just a tad bit right there on the edge of the seal. Now if I can get that to hold. Ta-da! Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my moly paste and around the edges where the piston seal is going to come in contact, right here it's going to come in contact, right here is going to come in contact, right here is going to come in contact, and then right here. In all of those places, I'm going to apply some lube, just to help get that piston in there without damaging it, or at least bettering my odds. I have deburred this and smoothed it out as much as I could, but I'm going the extra mile. I want to make sure that that piston seal does not get damaged on its way to its new home. And I've got a little bit there. Honestly, I don't think it would hurt much of anything really. Honestly, I've kind of thought about kind of dabbing some of that onto a paper towel and running it through there, but this seems to be the average way of doing it. I'm not lubing the cylinder. So once I get my other seal from Australia, I may attempt to lube the cylinder walls. But alright, now gently and carefully get that piston seal started. Kind of wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Nice and smooth. Yes, perfect. Perfect. All right. Now, take your screwdriver. push that piston all the way down. Just like that. Okay. Now try and get your gun to stay still. Grab your gas ram and your trigger group and insert your gas ram. Some guns you can do it like that, and the Nitro Piston 2 from Benjamin and Crossman, they've done that, and from what I've seen on reviews and everything, it's actually improved the overall gun all the way through, accuracy, power, everything. But on the Gamo Swarm, you're not going to get that luxury because this does not fit down here. You could probably machine that down and give it a try, although that's not something I'm going to do, or at least not do anytime soon. And you've got that like that. Carefully insert. And it's going to stop about right there. That's going to be as far as you're going to be able to push it in by hand. Now, you're going to have to put it back in the vise and press it in. Then put your pin in, and which you'll see me doing it. I'm going to go ahead and close up my Moly, keep dust and stuff out of it. But I am going to put that in one spot that I haven't seen anyone put Moly yet, and honestly I'm not too sure if it's, you know, real flammable or not, so it may be a good idea, maybe a bad idea, I don't know, but I will show a video on tomorrow when I test this with the chronograph and everything. I'll let you know if it did anything, good, bad, indifferent, nothing, something. But I'm going to go ahead and put it in the vise here. I'm going to have to reset the vise. Okay. A lot of people take the barrel off, but I've yet to figure out exactly how to get the barrel off, because I was wanting to recrown the barrel, but I couldn't get the shroud off to be able to access the tip of the barrel to recrown it. So let's see. Now this step isn't really needed, but I'm going to do it. Take your pin, clean it up, and I'm going to put a little bit on it, a little bit of Moly on the pin, just to kind of help it go through and not damage those O-rings any, because like I said before, I don't even know where you get them, which I also haven't really looked, but they're a funny looking O-ring. I'm sure it's going to be hard to find. And for the motor, okay, yeah, just put a little bit of Moly on the action. Oh yeah, and I'm going to do this. This is what I was talking about. I'm going to put a little bit right around the edge here. And some down on the breech seal. Not in the breech or the air port, but on the seal. And then on the roller. All right. And that's it. You reassemble the gun the same way you took it apart, but in reverse. It's fairly simple. You saw me take it apart. Putting it together is going to be just as easy. So, this has been Brett with Brett's Crappy Shots. Like, comment, subscribe. Talk about it. Let me know what you think. If you hate it, let me know. You love it, let me know. And happy shooting, fellas. Guys and girls. Have fun out there.